Hello everyone, Dr. Nick Verma here with another edition of Things I Didn't Learn in Med School. Last episode I was talking about partnering with a ASC and what that entails, and I got caught up on the Anti-Kickback Statute and Stark Law. So I took some time, I read about some things, I asked some questions to some colleagues and some mentors and kind of get some grasp, more understanding for them. But ultimately what ended up happening was I went to this website, Constantine and Cannon, and I got some good information from there. So I figured it'd be good to discuss these things, talk about what they are and how they might affect your medical practice, and then kind of build on that. I feel all the information that I gathered wasn't conveying the message that I wanted to pull together. So really, I got pulled up this website. That's why I keep looking up. It's right here. I figured it'd be a good spot to start, and then we can build off it. I do encourage you to check out this website and do some research about it yourself. But we'll get started, and I'll just kind of read through this website and give you some of my thoughts and some things I've heard over the past few weeks, past few years about these things. So first and foremost, it's the Anti-Kickback Statute and Stark Law. The Anti-Kickback Statute and Stark Law prohibit medical providers from paying or receiving kickbacks, remuneration, or anything of value for exchange for referrals of patients who will receive treatments paid for by the government healthcare programs such as Medicare and Medicaid from entering into any certain kinds of financial relationships. So a bunch of terminology that pretty much means is, you can't be going to do services where you're going to be getting kickback. I can't be sending patients to my friend down the street and expect him to pay me back $100 per referral. That's where the nature of this conversation begins. Pretty much the whole idea is to protect patients and protect unfair competition against unfair competition out in the community, and seems like a reasonable thing to put it into law and to have these rules and regulations. It can also prevent overutilization for certain procedures or examinations or other medical services. So if someone knows that I do epidural steroid injections, not every patient is indicated for epidural steroid injection. But if my friend down the street knows that, hey, he does them, and he's going to start sending me a bunch, and I'm like, hey, yeah, send me as many as you can. I'll give you a $20 kickback on each one. So, this is the concept, the overarching concept of why we don't want to have these kind of illegal tendencies in our medical field right now. So another thing is increased program costs, because this could end up costing more for Medicare or Medicaid. Even if I was seeing these patients and I was doing extra care for them from one certain provider, then that could really raise a red flag. And if I'm the one that's doing unethical things by doing more procedures than would probably be indicated, then it could be unethical and increase the cost for Medicare, Medicaid, and other payers. Now we shouldn't think of this as, I'm never going to refer all my patients to one person. You should always give all your patients all the options. An example I want to give is physical therapy, for example, is sometimes in-house with another physical medicine and rehabilitation practice. So in this kind of overarching laws, you don't want to always say, you must go to my physical therapy in my practice. That would be a violation of this law in itself. What you can do is say, we have physical therapy here, but you're free to go to whatever physical therapy you would like. And then they can check with their insurance, and they can check with the list of insurance that is approved. Quite often it is easier to keep everything in-house, so quite often that's why patients do choose to stay in-house for physical therapy, or stay in-house, like if there's a surgeon in the same medical practice, then I would refer all my patients to that surgeon, and then that wouldn't be a violation because it's within the right of the practice and within the right of the field. But the patient also has their own right to go seek a second opinion. They're not forced to go see the practitioner's partner in a practice. So that's kind of how those practice structures do get built. Let's see what else we have here. So a little bit more about the anti-kickback statute. really the big thing they're looking for is intent to induce referrals. So some sort of, it could be monetary, but it could be other things. It could be, big fancy dinners that are elaborate, et cetera, and it could be, tickets to a basketball game, and these things that kind of are in this gray area. And of course, this doesn't mean like there should be, and there are good relationships with physicians. You take them coffee, you take them maybe a gift basket of sorts, and this isn't in the nature of, oh, send me all your patients. It's just like, hey, here's a reminder, I'm down the street, I would love to see your patients, I'd love to help you out. We might have a good working relationship, or I want to build our working relationship. I want to see some more of your patients. Hopefully you can help out some more of my patients. And that's the nature of kind of building up a practice, and then what you need to do when you're going door to door, meeting practices, meeting therapists, talking to other providers, and just really growing a practice. And those are the kind of things that you do to help grow. And if you think about it the other way around, when medical industry, whether it be pharmaceuticals, whether it be durable medical equipment, or it could be representatives for devices, they can all come to your office and drop off gifts of non-monetary value, but all this stuff is recorded on the back end, and you should look up yourself and other people on the CMS website, where all this stuff is data tracked now. Any gift, any monetary, any dinner, obviously not monetary, but it can be monetary for speaking. It can be monetary for reimbursement for a flight at a conference, or a conference entrance fee. So all these things, when they do get reported, it takes about a year, give or take, and it's all public information on CMS website. So I do encourage you to check that out. And I actually do keep up on my own and see, hey, was that actually me, or was it the other Nick Hilverma MD that practiced in Chicago? So, these things are important because you don't want conflicts of interest. But it's kind of another point, definitely a point for another day, but love to talk about it more. But let's move on to a little bit more about Stark laws. The Stark law, unlike Anti-Kickback Statute, flatly prohibits broad range of financial relationships and does not require proof of intent to induce referrals. Determining when a particular financial relationship runs afoul of Stark law, however, can be more technically complicated. So, like it says, the Anti-Kickback Statute has this, their financial portion. The Stark law doesn't seem to be so strict about financial, or it doesn't have to be so strict that it needs to be, oh, I'm doing this all for referrals. It can be almost any other thing. It's like, oh, let me help your practice grow. You pay me money. So this wouldn't necessarily be practice referral based, but hey, I'm going to go do marketing for your company. I'm going to go build you up. Not without a contract, and just kind of doing it. It's like, and they expect some sort of reimbursement of, it could be financial, it could be patients, it could be a lot of things. So there's kind of something to think about. All right, here's some, this is why I really like this website, because it gave classic examples of violation of the Anti-Kickback Stark laws, and let's go through a few of them, and I think it'll really help. Let's start with the surgical center one. Hospitals, nursing homes, labs, dialysis centers, drug companies, DME companies, offering doctors in position to make referrals the opportunity to buy into surgical centers, distribution, joint ventures, or other investment opportunities on favorable financial terms, especially if those terms depend on the amount of business the doctor will refer. So it's completely fine to get these physicians in a contract, but the contract has to be worthwhile of what that physician is actually doing for the companies. So if I'm going to give speaking gigs for a device company, then it needs to be an adequate, pretty much on par with what the industry charges. It could be the upper end, it could be the lower end, but it needs to be somewhere in the expected value of what you're giving and what you're doing. And with that being said, it shouldn't be on monetary value based off of, oh, I'm going to go get a bunch of patients for this company or for this surgery center, but it's like, I'm going to go give this public message out. If they so happen to come and use this product or use my company, then that's better for the company, obviously, and that's probably why the companies do prefer to choose certain speakers for their events, especially if they have a high following and high influential rate. Here's the other one: the houses, hospitals, nursing homes, labs, dialysis centers, drugs, the immune companies paying kickback to doctors through big salaries or consulting fees as medical directors, proctors, consultants, where the doctor does little to no useful work. So very similar concept. Again, I kind of talked about it, and I think that there might be some abuse of this in the public domain. Well, it was a private domain, but now it is going to be public. So I think this is why it's important for you to go kind of check up and see what these doctors are actually getting paid for and who paid what doctor what for what services, or what lectures, or what consulting fees, et cetera, et cetera. So this will kind of wrap into what I'm talking about in the sense of the surgery centers, because in the surgery centers, I can't refer all my patients I can't go partner with a surgery center and then not do any of my procedures in that surgery center and just expect me to get kickbacks, because I'm not doing any useful work to make that surgery center grow and build. That would be a violation of the law, and that's why it's required to take 30% of my patients, or 1/3 of my billable charges, to that surgery center, and that's kind of how you help yourself stay in correlation with the law. Hospitals, going on to the next point, hospitals paying their employees or physician salaries or perform bonuses tied directly or indirectly to the number of x-rays or lab tests or procedures that are done in the hospital. Of course, that makes sense. You don't want to be sitting here getting unnecessary x-rays or unnecessary labs that might be expensive just to help the hospital, and then the hospital turns around and gives the physicians or employees money. Now, there's something to be said that there are people out there that are doing lots and lots of, say, procedures that may not be necessary, or lots and lots of labs that may not be necessary, or lots and lots of imaging that may not be necessary. Now, they might not get an official kickback, but these physicians or nurse practitioners or physician's assistants or whatever, they may actually be getting bonuses or salary increases every year, or they don't get fired. So something to keep in mind. As I dive deeper into this medical field and the financials of things and how hospital systems are structured, I could see a scenario where a hospital would be less likely to fire someone that's doing all these extra tests and stuff. Might be wasteful on some sense, but ultimately, if the hospital is getting reimbursed, they're going to want to hold on to that physician a little bit longer. So just something to keep in mind. Hospitals offering physicians below the market rate for rent, for office space, free access to clinical administrative support staff, or just special deals, overhead expenses. And this doesn't have to be hospitals. It can be anything. So that would be, for example, if I went to a hospital, I'm like, hey, I need to borrow I need rent. I need space to see my patients. Like, okay, perfect. We have a perfect spot for you. And they'll say, you know what? You're a good physician. I'm just going to give you $100. No problem. Just pay us $100. That should be fine. When we know that $100, a month is not going to be anywhere on the market average. Here's actually a good example is renting space from another physician. And that physician may or may not be referring you patients. If they are and not really charging you rent, then that could be a conflict of interest and cause some anti-kickback law issues. Now, there are fancy ways to get around these things. It's like, okay, for that physician, it's like, okay, you're referring me patients, but he also refers to other pain physicians or other surgeons, and that's fine. And then the turnaround is, okay, I will pay you a fair market rent. What is your rent in this market average? And I use it for X amount of hours, so that makes sense. I can use it for this amount of money. And those are things that can be obviously traced if you're using a billing company, or a bookkeeping company, and they're checking your profits and losses every month. They can just say, oh yeah, this is how much he's paying this physician every month to use this space. So that's something to keep in mind. Drug companies, DME companies, and providers of skilled therapy paying nursing homes for long-term contracts. So these contracts should be fair. They should be at the average rate of the nation, or for that area. Everything else talks about drug companies paying to pharmacies, drug companies paying to insurers, and payment to specialist pharmacies, DME suppliers, therapy centers, nursing homes, to patient recruiters or patients directly. So, paying patients to come see you, that's another thing. Someone had recommended, it's like, oh, why don't you, so I have an office in Marion, I have an office in Columbus, someone offered, it's like, oh, why don't you offer gas cards to these patients that live in Marion that need to come to Columbus? It's like, well, you can't do that because that is a violation of the STAR clause. You can't be giving patients incentives to come see you. They need to make that decision on their own, which within their own right. And this gets a little bit different when you stop using government agencies and payers for your services. So what I mean by that is when you start going into the private world and you use a cash-based model, this starts to get a little bit different. And as we know, there's a lot of chiropractors out there and there's a lot of dentists out there, and I'm not bashing them, I'm just trying to explain this. They have a different business model where a lot of their practices are cash-based. So they don't have as many stipulations where they can, like, okay, I can give a 50% discount for you to come to see me. So that's something to keep in mind. If you have cash-based models, things in your practice built in, you be able to use those services for discounted price or something along those lines. So that's something you can probably talk to an expert in this field. Again, I'm not an expert, but it is something that I wanted to talk a little bit about. I feel like it makes sense, especially in the continuation of what I was talking about last week. This last point it says on this, there's tons of ways that people try to cheat the health care system. The big thing is if you feel like it's a violation, talk to a lawyer, talk to professionals about this, get their take, and see if they can dig it up. A lot of lawyers don't do healthcare specifically, so you need to look for, or as a part of their practice, so you need to look for someone that's well-versed in the anti-SARC, anti-statute, kickback, and STAR clause. So some things to think about. Anyways, I know it's a little bit shorter today. I hope you guys find this useful. Please share, drop me a like, drop me some questions. If there's other topics you'd like to discuss, please let me know. And I think next week or coming up weeks is I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's so hard for private practices to get paid or to keep up with this ever-evolving, difficult world of the healthcare system and how hard to navigate. Two things I'm going to highlight is kind of how much the pricing went down for physicians, and also I do want to talk and touch a little bit about how Medicare Advantage plans might not be as advantageous as they advertise. So stay tuned for those. Hopefully you guys will find this useful. Please share it, drop a comment, drop me a like, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.